going on, people? It's Mr. Do Daily back again with the latest Dialing with Des on the DoreOnTour YouTube channel. As ever, looking forward to having the final word on the weekend's game. Fireworks, weren't they, on bonfire night at the City Ground? That was one way I put it. It all went off. So much to talk about, so much to get through. Of course, I gave those sub-headings and we'll come back to those shortly. But before we really get into the crux of things, just a few reminders. You can get involved this evening. If you hit that link, you can dial in and be part of the show. It'd be fantastic to have you on. Of course, keep your comments coming in. I'll try and get through as many of those as I can. It'll be fantastic to hear what people have got to say, whether you agree or disagree, and there's been plenty on either side from the things I put out over the weekend. So really looking forward to getting stuck into those. Got some great guests lined up as well. People, new faces and returning faces. Of course, I'm always encouraging people to get involved. The Dore himself has put the link up there. It's at the top of the chat. So if you want to come on and join the show, it'd be absolutely fantastic. Really looking forward to getting stuck in tonight. Lots and lots to get through, of course, from that eventful game at the City Ground. What I will say, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. Dore's really trying to get to that 9,000 mark as quickly as he can. I think he's about 50 or 60 away right now. So you'd be doing him a massive favour. You'd be doing me a massive favour if you could give a thumbs up to this episode, this live feed, just to show some support to myself and the channel. That would be absolutely fantastic. Of course, I've got my own YouTube channel, Do Daily, where I try to be positive. It wasn't always easy after the weekend, and some people threw that back in my face. But that's a different subject completely. I talk about trying to be positive and trying to get through the day, even when things aren't absolutely fantastic. It's a soft touch to mental health, but I don't sort of go on about mental health either. Check it out if you wouldn't mind. That'd be absolutely fantastic. Lots of people from DoreOnTour subscribe to that and support that. So it'd be amazing if you can show me some support in that way as well. Of course, if you want to be a member of DoreOnTour, I am personally. I don't know why I'm doing shows for him when I'm paying him myself. £2.99 a month. I just believe for all the content that I watched before I was involved, that it was absolutely worth it. I pay a lot more for Sky, and we all know what Sky is. It's a bit like VAR. You know, we sing the same sort of songs. So yeah, £2.99 to be a member. It helps him massively. It helps him keep delivering content, and of course, that's what we all love, isn't it? We all love the content that's provided and talking about Forest, whether people agree or disagree. And another way of supporting the channel is for a super chat. If you want to make a one-off donation, please hit that super chat button, donate what you can, and again, it all goes back into the channel and Dore and towards Dore and supporting what he does here. We know he works really hard at it. We know he puts so much effort in, and he's been doing it for a long time now. And now he's a Premier League content creator as well. It's even more work to do. So that's all the housekeeping out the way. Of course, I mentioned the weekend's games, and that's that thumbnail I put out before coming on tonight. The subjects I really want to talk about, of course, we can't avoid VAR and that shocking penalty decision. There's also Morgan Gibbs-White. I'm a massive fan. Anybody who's watched the channel will know how much I rate him, how much I wanted him to sign. Probably had his best game for Forest on Saturday, and of course made a massive contribution with that first goal, which ultimately should have been the winning goal. And one last little subheading I work off was, are we doomed? It was something I put in a tweet, and it got completely taken out of context. I'm not trying to explain myself. I don't have to do that. But what I meant by that was, with the way the game panned out, I put a tweet out saying basically, with the refereeing decisions, with the elementary mistakes, Forest weren't perfect in that game on Saturday. I do believe they could have gone on to win it without the penalty decision, but it just felt like everything was like closing in on us a little bit, and it was all going against us. A little bit frustrated after the game. I wasn't saying, that's it, I think we're getting relegated. been really, really positive so far. And every week I come on here encouraging you guys to get behind the team. I got slated last week for not going mad at the Arsenal result. I got called a happy clapper. That's absolutely fine. I'm sat here in a position talking about it, but that's the way I've been. I want to enjoy the Premier League. I want to enjoy what it's all about. My point in my tweet, and the point I'm making here, was I walked out the City Ground for the first time in probably, since before COVID at least, because we was on that upward curve since. I walked out the City Ground absolutely fuming. Most of that stems from the referee and the decision. But then there was little bits in Forest play that really got to me as well. The fact that we conceded the penalty, it was ridiculous. The ball across the midfield, it had happened twice before. I'm not just having a go at for you. He is somebody I've picked out and think we could get a little bit more from. But Nico Williams played one across the back four. We did it about 3 times just before the goal. And we got caught out on that one. And then you're giving the referee a decision to make and the VAR. It was an absolute joke. But if we'd done our bit, we wouldn't have conceded that penalty. So that was why I'm kind of asking, are we doomed? It's not we're going down. I'm really optimistic. I've seen an upturn in fortunes. If you look at the last set of results, apart from the Arsenal one, they're much better. We're getting there. We're competing. I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, before we played Liverpool, we needed to stamp some authority on the league and almost make sure teams know we're here to compete. And we definitely did that. We've done it against Liverpool. We've done it against Brentford, and that game, I never felt Brentford were going to win. I couldn't see how they were going to score. They didn't come out their own half. And to get that penalty and to give it away in the way we did was really, really frustrating. So that was the angle I was coming from. But they're my thoughts. I'll speak a lot more to the guests as we go through on those subjects. But anything you've got to add, anything you want to say, please do drop it in the comments. Or, like I say, do come on. Hashtag dialing with Dore if you want to include dialing with Dore, dialing with Des. Forget myself there. If you want to mention us on social media as well. Just to go through some of the comments before we get that first guest in. Chapper says, hey up Reds and Des. Richard's in light training. Good news, Nia Carty's still a long way off. Perhaps something we can talk about. Eve says, good evening, Des. Hope you're well. Good evening, Eve. Annie, Isle, Dan, love VAR. I'm not sure about that one. Ricky says, evening, Des. Need to play Surridge on Wednesday and start Mangala O'Brien on Saturday. Again, that's probably going to be a big talking point with the things I've said about Floyer, and Dennis. I wasn't too keen on their performances. I know the Floyer one splits the fan base in half. So not just being controversial, but we'll come back to that, I'm sure. Kev says, evening, Des. You Eds. Evening, Kev. Simon, you Eds. Lots of people checking in. Ricky said, referee was a joke. Get rid of VAR. I think we could all do with that, couldn't we? Nick says, one eye on this, one eye on cracking rugby league wheelchair game between Wales and USA. Keep us informed how it's going on. I have seen a bit of that myself as well. Dan, still in touching distance. If we beat Palace, we'll be in the mix. Absolutely. I think most of us kind of was of the consensus. If we get 4 points from these 2 home league fixtures, we'll keep ourselves in touch. And going into the second half of the season, I've been saying it myself for weeks. I've been saying it from the start of the season. There'll be teams that start very poorly. After the World Cup, it'll be like a brand new season. And there'll be teams that start, like Arsenal, for example, brilliantly, look like they're going to challenge City, but we know somebody's going to fail. It might not be them, it might be other teams that are up there. Somebody like a Crystal Palace themselves or Brighton, teams like that might really struggle after the break. I don't know who it's going to be, but what I will say is there'll be some twists and turns because of that window. There'll be players who lose form in the World Cup. There'll be signings in January that are made because of the World Cup. And I think the whole picture changed. Another subject on the Forest front around that is there's talk of more investment, isn't there? And perhaps more investment means a bit of a overall of the squad. We know that the people who was a massive part of the signings in the summer have now gone. So that could be something you want to talk about as well. If there's anything along those lines, please do get in touch. I'm not sure what was being said there. Chapo says, Rob, 2 points by the ref, 3 penalties not given to us. Dennis Yates, Morgan Gibbs White, and a Man City penalty a joke was given. Absolutely. And I think that's the frustration, isn't it? It's the consistency of what's happening with this VAR that's really disappointing. Mark says, Des, sorry, mate, that was me pulling you up on the Doom comment, just trying to stay positive and there's so much knee-jerk reaction. Tell me about it, Mark. It's absolutely okay. Don't worry, that's what it's there for. You know, the written word can be taken the wrong way. But after Arsenal, I was getting slated for being happy-clappy. You know, we've just got to stay positive because that's the only way, isn't it? Who's getting angry? He's not going to get Forest out of the relegation zone. Sonny D says, evening, Des. I'm just going to read a few more of these because I've got some guys patiently waiting in the background. I think we all know what that one means. Mark also backs out, we have to stand by Cooper and the lads, definitely. Steve Cooper's biggest fan. I think we all are. We all claim to be that, most of us, apart from the Irish guy. I've not seen him on here yet. I'm sure he'll be shouting for his head. But, well, I'll get back to these comments. Like I say, I want to get the guys in. I'm going to bring a guy in who I met for the first time on Saturday. Evening, Paul. Are you all right?
Yeah, I'm fine, Des. Thank you very much. Yeah, really enjoyed ourselves on Saturday. Thanks to that last-minute equaliser. I'm not sure how much we would have enjoyed it if that had gone in. But particularly having paid arm and a leg because there was 5 of us, and the only way we could go was to go corporate. So, you know, cost us a few bob. Well, cost me a few bob. But really, really enjoyed it. Yeah. And the one thing I sort of took, I'll come on to VAR in a bit, but the one thing I took from the experience was that actually Forest aren't that far away now, in my opinion, from having a half-decent team. I think we're a centre-half that can actually pass the ball rather than lump it forward, preferably with half a yard of pace as well, and a good centre-forward. Not necessarily one that can rifle them in left, right and centre, but somebody that can hold the ball, bring everybody else into play. And I think if we can get that, get the balance of the midfield right, because I still think we're struggling on that a bit, and I think we'll be all right then.
I think you're right, Paul. You know, we've been talking about certain players everywhere, and I've already expressed my frustrations at 1 or 2. You know, I've mentioned Dennis, I've mentioned Foy. I don't think they give enough. You know, a centre back might be a big priority because what really upset me on Saturday in terms of the Forest side of it. You know, of course, the penalty decision was what it was. I was fuming because of it. Come out in the second half, Forest then, that second goal, Brentford had been trying that ball all afternoon. They've been trying to find that ball, and for some reason, Forest pushed right up to the halfway line. The centre-backs was a mile apart. Yes, it was a cracking ball. You know, it was like a almost half-volleyed pass or volleyed pass through. And he beat that trap. I just thought that was naive, you know. So, and again, whilst we're looking better and looking a lot more compact, I think there's 2 or 3 players that could give a little bit more. You know, Cook's had Cook had a couple of brilliant games where his back was against the wall, Brighton, Liverpool. But is he the long-term answer? You know, is he? He seems to get picked out every week on Match of the Day. You know, and I'm not just saying all the pundits are right and we're wrong and other people are wrong, but he's getting picked out every week. They're not doing it on purpose, whatever the conspiracy theories are. And for me, like I've said, Foyer, he doesn't link the play. He's a very good footballer. Don't get me wrong. He's a brilliant footballer, but he's not making an impact. He's not making an impact.
If Ryan Yates had played that ball that Freuler played, Twitter would have had him hung up from a lamppost outside the ground, wouldn't they?
Well, I did actually make that point, Paul, and someone told me to stop being ridiculous. But anyway,
well, I think it's true. I think if that had been Yates, then everybody would have been up in arms. And I'm yet to, and I've only seen them live once, but obviously I've seen them on the telly. But I'm yet to see really what Freuler brings to the team. But I think they've got better options.
There's him and there's Dennis. And for me, we all seen Dennis. He was slipping, sliding. He was offside.
Kept slipping over. Yeah.
And I don't want to be harsh on these players, but every single player has got to perform to keep Forest up every game.
Yeah.
We can't carry passengers. And in games like that, we're carrying passengers. These players are not impacting the football match. You could say Dennis did it ultimately in the end. He ran back from an offside position and ends up setting Morgan Gibbs right off. So people might tell me I'm talking absolute rubbish. But the rest of the game, it was there to see. I don't think he offers as much as some of the others. And there's others. Lingard's another one who's not given us enough. I want him. No. We all want him to come good. We all want him to almost like last couple of games, I don't know, or come back after January and just take it by storm. But it's not happening, is it? And I think
we're still waiting though, aren't we? We're waiting. We'll say we'll give him another game, and we'll give him another game, and we're still waiting. How long do you wait? When do you say, well, that's enough? I'm sorry, mate. We'll go in a different direction now.
Exactly, and I think they was the disappointing thing. But again, you started by talking about bringing the family down, big day out, come along from Skeg, didn't you?
Yeah.
Got to meet the guys. So what was it for you that made it a real special occasion?
Well, I think it was because we haven't been. Well, my grandson has, to be fair, but I haven't been since before lockdown for all sorts of reasons. That I won't bore you with, but it was because it's such a long time. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed it, basically. And I just thought, oh, this is going to spoil the occasion for us now. And that last minute goal just made it better than it was going to be. Obviously, it would have been better if we would have won, but yeah, it was a great day. And I met Jason Lee. And he's a gentleman. We had a bit of a chat with him, and that was nice. And we had a bit of nice food beforehand, probably a bit too much. He kept bringing these pies round of different flavours, and kept tucking in. And
but yeah, it was a real. Where can you have one?
Well, exactly. But yeah, no, it was a really good day. Let's just talk about VAR now, can we? Because we were in that Trent End bit behind the glass there, so we had a pretty good view of it. And I said to Christopher, my son, as soon as it happened, he's going to give a penalty for that. I was astounded when he didn't. But then, having watched it, obviously repeatedly since then, I've changed my mind now. But at first sight, I thought it was a penalty. But what my real bugbear with VAR is, I listened to Genus on Match of the Day on Saturday night, and he says referees have been told if there's minimal contact, it's not a penalty. So we're now asking referees to judge how much contact there's been. The only two people that know that is the bloke that's doing it and the bloke that's having it done to them. And the time that it took is ridiculous. Every other sport, cricket, both codes of rugby, anybody else, that they seem to do this video stuff much better than football, as I see it.
Absolutely, Paul. And I totally agree with you, what you say there about other sports. There's two things I think VAR should do. If the referee is going to check something on the screen, just run straight to it. Yeah. Don't let anybody else touch it.
No.
Let people in the background deal with the technology. That's one thing you could do. Because when they go to the screen, it's going to be overturned. That's why they've got them there. So what you need to do, if the ref feels that he has to go and have a look at the screen, just run straight to it. I know there's a few seconds to get it all set up, but it's taking 5 or 6 minutes. It's ridiculous. And one other thing for me is rugby league. It's the way you word these things sometimes. In rugby league, when they score a try, they go up to the box and they say, give me a reason not to award the try.
That's right, yes.
So they've got to find a conclusive reason not to award it. So why isn't the referee on Saturday, when that goes to VAR, saying, give me a conclusive reason to award a penalty?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, Darren Fletcher was on.
The whole outlook, doesn't it? It changes the whole perspective.
Absolutely right. So Darren Fletcher was on on the Garibaldi podcast earlier today that we watched. And he said that obviously he does European football. And I've said to Christopher, my son, on repeated occasions, do you know, Europe do this VAR business much better than we do. In fact, in European matches, you very rarely know it's going on. They just seem to get on with it and have a look, and it just goes on. But my real thing about VAR is, and this is me not having been to a match for a long time, is that it actually is killing the live experience of the football match. I mean, that last goal, the equalising goal, you're euphoric. And then all of a sudden, the ref stood there, oh, it might be offside. And that euphoria is immediately squashed.
And again, Paul, I'm totally glad you mentioned this, because both goals I didn't celebrate, because I actually thought Dennis was offside. I thought he'd ran from an offside position, because I was at that end, I'm at the Bridgeford end, and I thought, because I saw the run back, and obviously I couldn't see the lines because I'm behind the goal, but I thought he'd ran. So when it gone in, I didn't celebrate until it had been confirmed. And then the moment's gone. And then the last minute goal.
Absolutely.
They scored, and you go mental for about a split second when you've probably been doing it for about 30. And then you see a big purple thing on the screen saying VAR, potential offside. And again, the moment's gone.
It kills it, doesn't it? Absolutely. I mean, to me, that's the reason you go to football, so that you can share moments like that with 30,000 other like-minded people. Otherwise, you might just well sit and watch it at home on the telly. And VAR, in my opinion, is killing those moments.
It absolutely is.
That's my objection.
I'm glad you mentioned Fletch as well, because I've watched that today. Obviously, I can't articulate in the same way as Fletch.
No, none of us can.
Many of my opinions align with what he was saying, and it was nice to hear somebody sort of say it, and then obviously sort of reassure myself that I am actually seeing something here. But what he said about VAR, what he said about referees, it was absolutely spot on, wasn't it? Obviously, I'm not trying to divert people away from DoreOnTour, but I would highly recommend going to have a look at what was said, because there were some excellent points made, and he's obviously passionate about it, being a Forest fan. It's definitely worth looking. And this whole thing, I'm just so glad, Paul, it didn't completely ruin your day. In terms of like the atmosphere, it probably helped sort of drive it up a few notches as well, didn't it? The anger and the frustration probably was all a bit wacky.
That was another thing of mine, that when they got that penalty, that seemed to deflate our players for quite a while after that. And I would have thought, if I was putting myself in that unlikely position, if it was me, it would sort of motivate me the other way, I think. It wouldn't deflate me. I'd be chomping to get out after the break.
I totally agree, mate, because that was part of my frustration with the team. It was almost like they come out second half nervous. We all felt done by. I've not been. I get angry at referees. I don't get angry at much in my life, but I have got an absolute bugbear with referees and the standard. VAR or no VAR, the standard is pathetic.
Absolutely.
Week out, Championship, Premiership, League One, whatever. It's absolutely ridiculous. And I'd seen that at half time. I'd seen about 17 replays in the concourse. And I was so wound up. And I thought, what frustrated me a little bit was the players weren't as sort of worked up about it. And I know that by getting worked up, they could have lost their cool and they could have lost it in that sense. But it didn't look like that. It looked like they'd almost sort of, somebody had sort of popped a balloon. Or a bubble. They were playing well. They were taking the game to Brentford. I felt Brennan and Gibbs White were linking up. Gibbs White brings out the best in Brennan for me now.
Absolutely,
And I think we had them on the rack a little bit. We almost had to suck that in. It was hard, 30,000 people going ballistic, and it's easy for me to say the players had to suck it in and get on with it. But somehow they had to. and then get through it. And it just didn't look like that second half, did it? What was pleasing was the way they kept getting the ball in the box late on. I think that was the important thing. It did not work out.
The subs made a difference, didn't they? I think. And I'll tell you who else deserves a mention was Aurier. That first half particularly, they kept pumping that long diagonal over the top. I don't know why they thought they seemed to be playing on him, regarding him as a weakness. And they never caught him out once, even when he fell over. He still won the ball. And I thought it was excellent all match.
That's the ball I'm talking about, and Aurier defended it every single time. And he's been a bit of a revelation, hasn't he? He's not been
absolutely wrong.
He's not world class. He's not the best player on the team. But what he does, you can see the Premiership experience. You can see the know-how.
He does his job. Yeah,
he feels like a red card waiting to happen, or something crazy like that. But for now, he's better than what we've had, and he's doing
right. Yeah.
But I appreciate you coming on, Paul.
It's been great, Des. I've threatened to come on previously, haven't I? And then I'll keep bottling it. But I thought, well, this time now I've actually got something to say this time, so I'll grasp the nettle and give it a go. It's been great, mate. Thank you.
Exactly. It was a pleasure to meet you, and I'm glad you've got over them technology demons and actually hit that link and signed in. But some great points made there, mate. I'll catch you soon, and stay positive, and hopefully we can get through it.
Bye.
Cheers.
Bye.
That was Paul. Got to his first game in a long time on Saturday. He said there how much he enjoyed it. Really positive about things. There's lots to be doom and gloom about, but he enjoyed the game and he made some great points. I'm sure things that we're going to sort of expand upon and talk on a little bit more as we go on. That full-time wheelchair rugby World Cup score, Wales 50, USA 32. Not sure what that means in the grand scheme of things. Here he is, Peter the Irish guy. Didn't think it'd be long. We're not rock bottom because of the referee conspiracy. It's because of a terrible manager, but let's not rock the boat, eh? You're still invited, Peter. You're still invited onto Dialing with Des anytime. Hit that link. Where is it? Let's find it for you. Hit that link. Come on, talk about Steve Cooper. Tell us why he should be going. Don't agree with you myself, but that don't mean you're not welcome. If you can find time to get in, please do. There's a couple of more comments I want to sort of get through based on some of the things said. This is an interesting one. Chapo says Palace a lot faster and skillful, be harder than Brentford. Possibly, but again, we've got to go on what we've got, haven't we? We've just got to sort of start thinking about how we can take the game to the opposition and put a stamp on it. And that's what we did against Brentford. That's what we did against Liverpool. And we come out of it with a positive result. So that's really, really important. Grant says here, definitely need a quicker centre-back involved against Palace. Where is it? I'm inclined to agree, but where is he? Because obviously we've got Niakate injured and there's not much pace back there. This is a good point. I'm sure lots of people agree with this when it comes to the VAR. Bringing ex-pros into the VAR team to add guidance and gameplay, something refs don't know. Absolutely. Why wouldn't you? Cricket umpires are former cricketers. I know one, and they're not cheats. They're not biased. They do what they're supposed to do. They do what they get paid to do. DoreOnTour backing up my point. Get on, Peter. I sent you the link on Facebook. So, and here he is. Look, he can't get on tonight. Sadly, have company. It's not Steve Cooper, is it? Anyway, we'll move on quickly. Douche. Comment here. Jay says we're not far away from smashing the team 4-0. I don't necessarily agree with that, but I do in many ways as well. I think there's a big win in there where it all just clicks. Something against one of these teams where it just all comes together and we get 1 or 2 goals in front and then the Flair players really kick on. Not sure when it's coming, but hopefully Saturday. Nick says the goal for the end of the season is nothing more than getting 17th. Trevor fancy tracksuits. Fowler is very comfortable on the ball, but I'm not sure he makes any real impact defensively or offensively. My point exactly. He looks a great footballer, probably in a better team. No disrespect, but probably with better players. And I feel he needs to play 20, 30 yards further up the pitch. I really do. I think he can impact a game in the opposition's half. The problem is, and this was a point being made on the podcast that Paul was on about, he's not a number 6, is he? We haven't got that number 6. We haven't got that sitting player, and he's the one being asked to do it. He doesn't get the ball to Gibbs White quick enough, or out to the wingers, or out to the fullbacks. It's all a bit too nicey, and he just needs to make an impact in that sense for me. Sonny says we're not bottom after 14 games because of VAR. Absolutely not. Let's be honest, we've not been good enough. Nobody can deny that. Whilst it's easy to blame things and get upset when people question Forest, these pundits, the reality is it's there. They've not got an agenda against us. They're talking about what they're seeing. And if they didn't talk about what they're seeing, they'd get called out as well. So I think that's a great point. We're bottom of the league, but being positive, all we can do is try and sort of tackle the next game. And I look back to the Leicester game, and we were going down like you won't believe. We would have been down by now, never mind April or Easter. But after the Leicester game, we've seen a massive improvement, haven't we? We've seen a much more settled team. Most of the positions seem to be filled with the players Cooper wants. Yes, we will question them. We're fans. We've all got different opinions. Football's a game of that. But I think we are heading in the right direction and at least competing, and that was the important thing. Grant says we need Mangala and O'Brien getting started soon. Again, O'Brien featured, tends to pick up that ball, and he gets into the penalty area, around the penalty area. Some nice interchanging with Morgan Gibbs-White. I quite like that from him. So be interesting to see how it pans out for him in the next couple of weeks. Lots of comments coming in. 85 people watching. Really, really appreciate the support. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe to the channel. Trevor fancy tracksuit. The ref was crap. VAR was a joke, but to be honest, I'm bored of talking about it. Let's get back to talking football. I'm pretty much of the same thing. There's lots of things we need to put right as a team. Of course, it's a massive factor when we're talking about the weekend's football, when we're trying to close it off. There's games to look forward to this week. We've got Tottenham in the League Cup. What do you think is going to happen there? Is he going to change it? Would you play the same team? Would you change a few? Would you bring in the likes of Worrell, Bowley, Bardet even, give him a try? It'd be interesting to hear people's thoughts on that. Keep the comments coming in. So on that note, I'm going to bring someone else in. Ant, a regular on the show. Good evening, mate. All right?
Yeah, always a pleasure to speak with you, Des.
It's a pleasure to speak with you again, mate. What's on your mind about the game, apart from VAR?
Well, if I just want to briefly touch on VAR, I don't want to go about it too much because I think we've pretty much covered it. But at the ground, my immediate reaction was no penalty. I sat there quite calm, thought that's not, and that was from 50 yards away. I've seen nothing to change my mind since. From my perspective, the guy was going down anyway. He'd already stumbled. Dino had put his arm out to try and get the ball. He'd missed the ball, so his arm was there. The guy's leg brushes his glove as he goes down. No penalty. And then we go on to why weren't the others even looked at that we had? Morgan Gibbs-White and Emmanuel Dennis in another game would have been given his penalty. Yates wasn't because he was actually outside the box. I can accept that one. So the VAR decision was wrong. That's it. So going on to the game itself, first off, we were so comfortable. It was so easy for us. Brentford looked very poor indeed. Never looked threatening at all. Unfortunately, I don't know whether it was a half-time talk by Thomas Frank or whether it was the effect of the penalty, but we didn't seem to, or they came out better second half, whichever way you want to look at it. Emmanuel Dennis, personally, I think he's a fabulous player. I've seen enough of him at Watford to know that the guy's got power, pace, and eye for goal. I think we need to give him a little bit more time. In my opinion, I think we need to give him a little bit more time. The team's not functioning as well as it could do, so maybe that's having an effect on him. But I think he's a really good player. Same with Freuler. That pass yesterday was absolutely awful. I mean, you know, there's no forgiving that. There's no forgiving that. It was an awful pass. Although I have to say, something that's not been touched on by many people, although you did briefly mention it, both that pass and the pass for the the second goal, both of them were fabulous passes. I mean, first time ball over the top into the guy's path. I think nobody seemed to mention how good those passes were. However, having said that, I love Steve Cook. We all love Steve Cook. He's not quick enough. And yesterday, I was quite pleased with the line we were holding. We were holding a much higher line than we had done in previous games. The problem with holding a high line is you need a defender with pace. And the one attribute Steve Cook has not got is pace. And that's why the goals came, because a quicker defender could possibly have got back to both of those. Certainly the second one, he was left for dust. Now, I was watching Wolverine's stream earlier on, and one of his viewers came out with a suggestion. I'd be fascinated to know your opinion on this, Des, because the more I thought about it, the more I thought, maybe I like this idea. Now, bear with me, because it's a bit controversial, but Aurier can play at right centre-back. Aurier is very powerful. He's pretty quick. He's certainly quicker than Stevie Cook. And maybe that might be worth thinking about. So I'd be interested to know what you think about that.
Well, I just got a comment there from Pash. I don't know if he's the same person who commented on Wolverine channel, but
no, it's the idea.
I see the logic in the thinking, but no. It's a totally different position.
Yeah, but he has played centre back before, Des.
I'm not doubting it, but I think we'd lose a great right back for a start.
That's true. That's true. He has been a revelation, hasn't he?
And I had this sort of problem with Spence last season when they bring on what's the guy? The Canadian guy. What's his name? Can't think. Richie Lawyer.
I can't either.
They bring on Richie Lawyer and they put Spence at left back. And I never, ever get this in my life. Why would you make your right back spot weaker and then move a right back to left back and make a left like who's playing on the wrong side? It's unfamiliar. Why not keep your best player in his position?
I also that it's like you're slightly strengthening one, but you actually then have two weak areas.
Yeah, so I can kind of see the thinking, and I know he's played there. But I think he's doing such a good job, and he's one of the real plus points in terms of playing personnel. You know, and the signings, some of the signings for the money.
Like I say, he's been an absolute revelation, hasn't he?
For a free transfer, he's doing his job. He's a right back. He does get forward. You know, he can put a ball in as well. It's not perfect, but then neither was Spence with his distribution. You know, so I see that point, but I don't think I'd go down that road. With one game left before the World Cup, and then a couple sort of probably before the window opens. I'm not sure. Does
it's only Man U away in Chelsea.
Yeah. They're big games and we need to be sorted for. But I think with a couple of more games left, I would look at it. You know, we don't know what's happening with Niakate, do we? Nobody's got any idea. You know, and because it's obvious, he don't fancy the other players. You know, Bolly had a bit of a shocker on his debut.
I wasn't dead keen on the Bolly signing. I'm hoping that on Wednesday we see Bardi, so we can at least see what he's got to offer.
Well, I perhaps am too, but I'm not sure that. I think if he'd have been in the plans, we might have seen him earlier. And this is the problem with when players are signed. This is why we were probably getting so much stick, because Cooper can't have a look at 22 players in one game of football.
This is where, Des, this is where I have a bit of sympathy with Steve Cooper, because I think a lot of Forest fans would say we'd like to see Bardet given a game, but Cooper can't come out and tell us why he's not playing, because there might be a valid reason that we don't know of. But
that's the point I'm getting to.
He's not going to come out and say, well, no, because that's going to damage the relationship, so...
Exactly, and what I was getting to, he can't put 22 players on the pitch, but one game at a time. Each game is massive in the Premier League. 3 points available. You've got to try and win the game. If he doesn't fancy Bardet, if he's had nothing to do with signing him, and then they look at him. Remember, Cooper's assistant is Alan Tate. Knows a little bit about being a centre half. And obviously he's going to have a massive input in that area of the pitch. If they don't quite like him, how are they ever going to sort of get to a point where he does feature in the team? He seems to be right down the pecking order. He seems to be below Bolly even, because Bolly gets a place on the bench. So yeah, if he did play tomorrow, we'd all go, oh yeah, great, let's have a look at this guy. Let's see what he's all about. And if he had a good game and he works his way onto the bench and he gets some minutes. But for me, I think I can't get excited about players I've not seen for a start.
Yeah, I understand that. I mean, all players become better and better the less they play and the worse the team's doing. I mean, that is a fact.
Well, exactly.
I'm a massive Mangala fan, but in all honesty, I've seen him for 2 games. But don't get me wrong, I would love him to be in that side. But maybe the fact that we're doing so badly makes him seem an even better player.
This is what I'm saying. I went to Everton and it looked like he had an absolute stormer after the first 10 minutes. But then we remember we've got fond memories of a game where we got a point and we think, oh, this guy's got to be playing. What I've heard about Mangala is he doesn't do, and I didn't necessarily see it. I was involved in the atmosphere in the game at Everton. I've heard he doesn't defend as much as some of the others. So out of possession, he's not the greatest. And when you look at Forest midfield now, with O'Brien, Mangala, Foyer, who we've questioned his defensive work, and Yates is not an holding midfielder. Yates is someone to get about the pitch, get in someone's face, get the ball down, score a header, hopefully score a header, block one on the edge of the box, that kind of player. We haven't got that. And the classic example, and I'm not saying we're ever going to get a player of this calibre, but the Kante, the Kante player who has a million touches of the football. He plays it there. He runs.
There aren't many of them about though, Des, are there?
No, there aren't. But we haven't got anyone of that nature, are we? So there's always going to be an argument about who plays in that midfield, because there's not much of a defensive element to them. So we're talking about centre backs and pressure, and this is the problem within the team for me all over the pitch. And this is why I probably picked out Foyer. It's probably unfortunate, but if Foyer's not linking with the defenders, it's putting pressure on them when the ball comes. If he's not linking with the strikers, we've just got no cohesion anywhere on the football pitch. And I think I watched Ryan Yates against Liverpool and against Arsenal. He was doing 2 jobs. Against Arsenal especially, he was picking up, he was the one sort of chasing Odegaard around, which I think would have been Foyer's job. And he was also getting in the face of Xhaka, trying to get him sent off. It seemed like a tactic. He's trying to wind him up. So I think it's what the point I made with Paul about every single player, because we're not as good as some teams. When we get points, we're going to have to dig them out. We're going to have to fight, scrap. Teams are going to have to miss chances like Liverpool. But every player, it's like the typical cup game, isn't it? The lower league teams got to have all their players playing at 110%. The Premier League teams got to have their players playing at 50%, and they still miss chances. And I think that's the problem with Forest at the minute. There's not 11 players, and of course it boils down to this 22-man rotation, who's playing up front, who's playing at the back. There's just not that cohesion there because, for me, they've not got that linchpin player. Tongue-in-cheek, and again, I got loads of flack for it on Twitter. I said, give me Jack Colback any day of the week. I do like Jack Colback. Premier League is now probably past him, but I was saying it tongue-in-cheek just to make the point that we need that kind of player who just does all that simple stuff, picks it up, is going to sit in front of that back four, win those tackles.
My midfield three, Des, would. I mean, I think you know how much of a Ryan Yates admirer I am, yeah. But I think O'Brien is a better option for us. So my midfield three would be Mangala, Freuler, and Yates, and O'Brien. I think that they have got something that would link the back and the front. Mangala does drop deep for the ball from the goalkeeper, and what Mangala will do is he will turn on the ball, which is a midfielder's major asset, is being able to receive the ball and turn on it and play it. So I think that those three would be our best. Having said that, Coyote's been a revelation as well, but Coyote blows up after 60 minutes. He just does. You could see it quite clearly.
No, I totally agree. I totally agree. And one thing on Coyote before I let you continue is I think he was brought in as a finisher. I think he was brought in as the Cafu type player. He was the one when we 1-0 up or 1-1 and we're trying to see a game out. I think he was brought in to play that role. But out of necessity for a big, bulky, athletic type midfielder, he's probably played far more minutes than even Steve Cooper imagined.
I mean, I'm quite happy, to be honest, to have a starting three of Coyote, Freuler and O'Brien. And then you've got Mangala to come on when Coyote blows up. And you got Yates to come on when needed. I'm quite happy with that. I don't have an issue with Coyote at all. Like I say, I knew he was a good player, but he's been better than I thought he was.
Yeah, I totally agree. And again, this is why football is great, isn't it? Because we've not necessarily agreed on personality. We don't necessarily. You like Foyer. You think he should be in the team. I don't. You made a point about playing at centre back. Don't necessarily think that. But
it's only a thought. But you did make a good point about losing him at right back. That is a valid point.
Well, yeah, and I just think coming
out. We're doing it, but you must agree we do need some pace in that centre of defence.
Oh, I absolutely do, and we all again we're probably expecting too much of Niakate when and if he ever comes back. Because we've remembered a couple of performances.
He's like Van Dijk to us now, isn't he?
Yeah, in our head, he's become Virgil van Dijk of 2 seasons ago. Yeah. And the reality is, he's going to have to come back and he's going to be playing in a team. But yeah, you're right on that sense. I think we do need pace. I think it's killing us, but I don't necessarily think it's all down to that. I think it's that midfield. And then the ball just not sticking up top.
No, you're right. You're right. It is never, ever just the defence.
Yeah.
Never. It's always the midfield as well. As a kind of defensive unit. You have to take both parts of the sections of the team into consideration. It's never just the defence.
So we've got into the crux there, and as some of the tactics and the positions. Obviously, we've got two games this week. 2 quick questions. Try and keep it brief. We've got some guys waiting there.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
What team would you play against Tottenham, and are we going to win against Palace?
Right. We should play a change team game. I don't care about the League Cup. I'm sorry. Premiership survival is everything for me. And I don't care about... I don't want to risk any players. I put in changes all over the place. And for Palace, depends on the team. Depends on the team. Depends on the personnel that we pick. We can beat Palace, and they can beat us. I'm sorry, that's not very definitive, is it? But it's just the truth.
But that goes back to the point that at least we're competitive. At least after Leicester, we couldn't beat them.
I was worried after Leicester. But actually, if you look at how record after Leicester, it compares very well with the bottom half of the table. If you actually look at it, it compares quite well. So my last point, and then I'll get off, is no, we're not doomed. Absolutely, I do not understand the doom and gloom about we're down, we're going down. I do not understand it. We're what, 3 points off safety or something like that. Even if we lose against Palace and all of us win, which they won't, but even if they did, it'd be 6 points. We've got 25 games left, people. 25 games. We're nowhere near doomed. We might struggle to get into Europe, but we're nowhere near doomed.
Okay, mate. So I'm glad you didn't start on me on Saturday when people was misreading my tweet. But anyway, thanks for coming on. Really appreciate it. Some great talk about positions and personnel there. Really appreciate that. And see you soon.
Yeah, take care, mate.
Cheers. Another great guest there. Lots to go at. You know, I'm trying to sort of rattle on through, but there's lots of great conversation as well. Ian says the performance was so much better Saturday. VAR robbed us of 3 points. Lee Mason in the VAR room is a name to remember. Just ignored all our shots and did everything to go against us. Absolutely. I think he's had a couple of stinkers elsewhere as well. There was a Newcastle one he didn't give. Nick says O'Brien was involved in the goal. This guy, Mr. DoreOnTour, says hit the like and subscribe button. Don't forget that, guys. Keep commenting. 90 people in. If you've got anything to add, please drop us a comment. There's a comment here from Gordon. Hi, Des, long time, but first point, VAR wrong, too long for decisions. I think we all agree on that one. And then he backs that up with Lingard, let him go. You know, there's been a bit of talk about that as well, hasn't there? There's a few rumours about they might be looking to almost cancel the contract. I feel West Ham's probably not completely off the radar for Lingard, and who knows, it might be the best move for everybody. But that's just a feeling I have. Grant says Bardet or Worrell are quicker, are also an option. James kind of backs up my point here. He's trusted a right back and he's doing his job. No shortage of centre backs. Can't see Steve Cooper moving him. More chance of Dore at centre back. You don't want that, believe me. If you think he's bad at talking about football, he can't play football. He's even worse. He'll kill me for saying that. Comment here from Ben. Agree. We'd be creating another problem for Salford moving into centre half. Definitely. And then a comment, Bardet must be really poor in training for him not to have a chance yet. Again, it's something that we're not really in the know about, is it? Comment here, Brennan without Jed is like Lolly without cash. I see where that, great point. I see where that's going. Ricky says, why do we sign players like Bolly when they're not highly rated in the past their best? Probably because there was a bit of a panic on at that point. And the checkbook was wide open as well, wasn't it? Just looking at some of these comments, just trying to flick through. Rebel City Red says Oak Coop chooses Spurs game to try some different combos. Would love to see Surridge, Mangala, O'Brien and Bardet start. Again, that's an interesting one because I wouldn't change too much. I would put 3 or 4 changes, probably the positions where I think the players need improving on. But that goes without saying, doesn't it? But yeah, I'd like to see us win the game because I think Tottenham will make wholesale changes. They're struggling with injuries. And I think if we could just win a game, you know, it does wonders for confidence. I was speaking last week about Brian Clough. He went into every game looking to win it. He used to play little 6-a-side tournaments and put out 6 England internationals and things like that in the summer. And these days, that would just never happen. Russell says, Nia Carter will have to be brought back slowly as well. Point I made there. And then Nick says, on the back of Russell's point, just like Mangala is being, possibly. Keep your comments coming in, guys. Dore says, oi. I think that was the comment about him being crap at football and crap at talking about football as well. Just joking. Yeah, I'm going to bring the next guest in, but keep your comments coming in. Any questions you've got for myself or any of the guests, quite prepared, to be honest, give out my opinion whilst I'm accused of being a happy clapper one week and knowing absolutely naff all the next. I'll say it as I see it. It's not a problem, and that's why I love doing Dial-In with Des. So do keep your comments coming. It'd be great to see them. Just one quick comment here, just might create some conversation. Grant says Spence to start on Wednesday. I can see that happening. So without sort of going on too much about that, Charlie, you all right?
Good, thank you. How are you, Des?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for waiting patiently.
No worries at all. My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
We've got stuck in tonight, haven't we?
Absolutely, yeah. Some good topics as well. Very, very interesting.
What is it on your mind from the game at the weekend?
Well, first of all, just probably looking over the game of the weekend first. I want to retract my statement from when I was last on here, because I did say that I think we could get into Europe. I'm slightly less optimistic about that now. I think, probably not quite. But I do still think, and I recorded a video this evening, I do think we'll stay up quite comfortably. I think there are 3 worse teams than us in Southampton, Wolves and Bournemouth. And I think Bournemouth's game against Leeds at the weekend is the start of their bit of a downfall. I think that we saw it when they did it to us. That knock of confidence from being 2 goals up to then just blowing it. I think they turned it from a 1-0 to a 2-1. Either way, they were ahead, blew it in the last minute.
Can I just say, mate? Can I just say on that point, because it was something that crossed my mind. I think it's 3 from 4. I think there's I'll be honest, I think there's a big chance Forest will get relegated if they don't cut out the things I spoke about at the top of the episode. The silly mistakes, the things they're getting caught in week in, week out. But for me, it's 3 from those 4. They are the 4 worst teams in the league. Hopefully, it also gives me optimism because, again, referring back to that Leicester game, it was us and 2 others. Now, I feel we're in a little mini league with these teams. But I think anyone above that will probably get enough points to see us off.
Yeah, and it's annoying because I think Villa would have been in that, but I think the appointment of Emery is just world class, isn't it? I think they'll be near top half now. I just think, you can't really go wrong with a 4-time Europa League winner. So, unfortunate. But moving on to Saturday, I thought we played for the majority of the game well. I think there was probably a spell of 20 minutes at the start of the second half where I think we'd clearly been a bit deflated from the end of the first with the penalty and probably not going into halftime quite at the same sort of attitude that we were expecting to. But for the majority, and I think it's so frustrating because it's that long ball that we saw against Everton. We can dominate games and then get cut open by a ball over the top that a centre-back pairing such as Cook and McKenna that don't really have the pace there. It's going to be beaten. You get one. You probably put 10 of those over in a game. Any opposition, 2 of them have a very good chance of beating those 2, and it's really, really frustrating. So, I'd like to see Worrell or Bardet. I mean, again, as we've spoken about, he's the unknown element, isn't he? Really, Bardet come into the squad. I do think Worrell probably has been unfairly sort of frozen out of that starting 11. I don't think he was massively worse than either of the starting 2 currently. And to be fair, I think Cook's been quite good in particular, which is quite controversial because he's had a bit of a grilling on Match of the Day, and I think the fan base are also there. But I think he has the best footballing mind of that back 4. I think his awareness is fine. It's just so unfortunate that he is so slow. His legs don't match where his brain is at. But I think with pairing him with someone like Worrell or Bardet or just someone faster, it allows that sort of a little bit of a buffer for his mind to catch up, his legs to catch up with his mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So
I see where you're coming from, mate. Look, 2-3 games ago, Cook was playing blinders. When it was back to the wall stuff, and it was almost like I wouldn't say it was a one-man show back there, but he was getting in front of things. He was winning every header. It was talk of man of the match every week. But it's a long season, isn't it?
It is.
and when the pace kicks in, if you noticed on Saturday, they tried that ball several times, but the only time it come off was when Cook and McKenna was on the halfway line and pushed up. They pushed up the pitch. I don't know what the instruction were. I couldn't quite work it out because it was a little bit disjointed from Forest anyway in that second half. But rather bizarrely, since before the Aston Villa game, we found 2 centre-backs on the halfway line. As soon as they'd done that, that must have been sort of music to Brentford's ears. You know, they must have thought, wow, we've been trying to play it over the back of them for 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And Aurora or Cook was just sweeping it up.
Yeah. We're just doing it for them, aren't we? Just, giving them that sort of opportunity.
If we've got, I think in many ways, when I look at the Premier League, when I look at all the other teams, I think you have to play high up the pitch because it's about getting the ball to your attackers. It goes back to the point I made about cohesion. You know, if you can't get the ball to your attackers, you're going to struggle in the Premier League because the attackers, for me, and it's just a case in modern football, not just in the Premier League, attackers are better than defenders. Back in the day, you had your specialist. That's why Van Dijk was so good. But even he's lost something this season.
Yeah, very true.
But the attackers are so much better than the defenders. Back in the day, you'd have your real top quality centre halves who could do a job. And I think now, in many ways, because of the way it's all this tippy-tappy Man City stuff, they have to play high so you can get the ball to them. And you almost allow yourself to concede opportunities. But the teams with the athletic, quick defenders in are much better. Do you know, Virgil van Dijk, do you know, or Saliba or Gabriel at Arsenal or Diaz at City. Do you know, the players who can get back in and because Forest are trying to sort of take it another level forward, we've got a bit tighter. We've kept some clean sheets. We've got a result. I think there's probably a little bit, and we also took the game to Brentford first half. They didn't come out there half. There's probably a bit of confidence there to then go, right, we'll just step up a little bit. But of course, without, in our minds, Niakate or we're told Bardet can run or these type of players, it's going to be an Achilles heel as well, isn't it? You know, it's going to get us.
And I think the game on Saturday, as in this Saturday coming, Crystal Palace, we can't have Cook and McKenna trying to defend against Elise, Eze, and Zaha. I just think that would be a nightmare. I know that Zaha will be on the left, so Aurier could possibly cover him somewhat, but it frightens me to think the pace that they have as an attacking four. I forget the name of the striker, but he's fast as well. An attacking four going with pace going against, you know, Cook and McKenna. If they go central, they're going to get so much joy. It's just pass in every single time because they have the technical ability to match that. The thing we need to do on Saturday is, in terms of the defense, we need someone a little bit faster, but we need to make sure we're breaking it down before they even get there. Because if we want to play Cook and McKenna, then we need to make sure they're not even remotely close to our defense. We need to make sure we have the sort of midfield generals like your Chiates, who I think is. I slated him massively. The first game I went live to go and see him was the Bournemouth one, which I think could have actually been his debut. And I did not like him. I did not like it. I know he scored, but I did not see it. And I've been proven wrong so much since. I think he has been one of the best players in the past probably 5-6 games that we've had, which is a surprising revelation. But Ryan Yates as well. I know he's a sort of, I think he's a bit expendable for some people. I think they think, yeah, well, we've got better quality players, but there's nobody. They are. I agree. Ryan Yates actually, in terms of footballing ability, is one of our worst players, but he gives 300%. It's like having 3 men on the pitch. You look at that Leicester game, for example, where we were horrendous, absolutely horrendous. The only person I think that could have come out with any sort of credit was Yates because he's just battling, even at 4-0 down, battling, keep going. And I think without that, against someone like Crystal Palace on Saturday, we're going to look very, very scared against that sort of pace. I think we need to cut it out before they can even move.
Well, I think the important thing about Yates, and I've mentioned Foy a lot, haven't I? You know, the Liverpool game where I thought Foy played well, by the way. We won the midfield. And again, I think whilst your defence has got to play high, you've got to win that midfield battle and you've got to allow your strikers to do their thing. In the Liverpool game, that worked well for us. Liverpool missed chances, but I thought we won that midfield. It was quite inexperienced in terms of what they normally put out, but we won the game. And I think that, again, is where we're lacking. So against a team like Palace, who will be right up for the midfield battle, they always have been that team who've got two bricks in midfield, and now they've got Vieira in charge, so he knows exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
But again, they've got obvious threats, haven't they? They've got Zaha on the wing. Hopefully, Aurora can do a job on him. Upset him as much as anything. And again, get in his face and get him falling over and do what they do. But I think,
which is one of many reasons not having Aurier at centre back. The other one is that everyone is saying it. I agree. A red card waiting to happen. If he gets a red card at right back, at least he's at the side of the box, most likely. If he puts him in the middle, he will just give away a penalty and get a red card. It's like, we know it will happen at some point throughout the season.
If he's at right back and he gets a red card, we've got cover for him, haven't we? Because we've got loads of left backs, which we're not that sure about, but somebody who could come in and do a job. And then we've got Williams to put back. If he gets one at centre back, we're back to square one, aren't we?
Yeah.
So there's an issue there. But I think on Saturday we need to almost get amongst them in midfield again. I'd like to see O'Brien play with Yates. My midfield right now would be Yates, O'Brien and Mangala. And I think Yates and O'Brien could get amongst them, because I think that's what we need to do with Palace. Get amongst that midfield and cut off their supply line. Because once it gets to those forward players, once Zaha because he will beat Aurora, he'll beat most defenders. And if he's running into the box, then you sort of dread to think. So we need to almost cut off that supply line. Obviously, I know Cooper wants to do it. He wants to defend from the front, doesn't he?
Yeah.
But it's that problem of linking it all up again. That's why we've had to retreat to come back out again. So I think
there's a real chance. I think there's a real opportunity when you look at players like Jeffrey Schlupp, who I assume will start for Palace on Saturday. Not a particularly big guy. And if you put against him, if you put, O'Brien or Mangala, not a particularly big guy, you've got 50-50 chance of winning every ball in terms of aerial threat, which a lot of Forest play will be in the air. Let's face it, we're not going to beat them. I'm not going to beat them on the grass, I don't think. But if you add Chiarte there, I just think he wins everything against someone like Schlupp. There's no way Schlupp physically battles against Chiarte. I think he is so important for Saturday's game, personally.
Oh, I said Mangala, didn't I? I would play Chiarte because of the battle I feel we're going to be in.
Okay, cool.
Those three, and then you've got O'Brien buzzing and Yates doing his thing. Because I think it's going to be a battle. Palace are a physical, athletic side, and they have been now for quite a few years. And they don't travel particularly well, but they're going to fancy it just like Brentford, aren't they? They're going to be up for the game, and they're going to think if they can get the ball out to Eze and Zaha, that they've got every chance of getting at us. So I think if we can sort of get in the faces, cut off the supply lines, play off the front foot, hopefully we can almost rein them in a little bit.
Absolutely. Who would you have at left back is my final sort of question, because I don't feel convinced. I've said, again, I've recorded a video this evening. I said, as soon as Omar Richards is back, he was the original plan. He was like our second signing this summer. Definitely a Cooper signing. Know a lot about him. A very decent Premier League left back. Before he comes back, is Loddy really not good enough to start over Williams on his weak foot? Because I think Williams has an attacking quality which is far superior to Aurier's, I think, but doesn't have a defensive burden in his body, I don't think. But putting him on the left actually then weakens his one good skill, which is his crossing from the right, on his right foot, because he has to cut in, and that slows everything down and is so much easier then for the opposition to read. So do you think Loddy is that bad that you would start Williams over? Because they're the two options right now. Toffolo's injured.
I would start Williams over Loddy. I think he's that bad. I'm so disappointed. And again, I take no pleasure from not rating Loddy or Foyer or Dennis, these kind of players. But I spoke to, so there was an Argentinian guy on DoreOnTour telling us about Loddy, and he was supposed to be someone who gets into the box and he has shots. I'm not seeing that, because every time I've seen him get the ball, he turns inside. People have said, "Oh, he's not a wing back," so he's played out and out left back, and his positioning is terrible.
Yeah.
So and again, it's just more disappointment than anger. It's more like these guys were supposed to be like, I think they'd lined him up for about 35 million, haven't they?
Well, the fact is, he played in the Champions League last season and got man of the match in a game that they beat Man United in. And I don't know what's gone on, but they want to ship him now. They want to get rid of him. They really want Forest to trigger that release clause, which I don't think we have.
I believe he's fallen out with Simone.
Oh, has he? I didn't know that.
I believe. I'm not 100% sure. But,
so
I would have Williams, and do you know what? In many ways, the way Forest were building up at the weekend against Brentford, I didn't mind it when he was cutting back onto that side, because it was almost keeping the ball away from it was almost the in-swinger which gave us a chance. Sometimes with you're exactly right with Nico Williams and the right side, it's the right angle, but he's got to get it spot on. When he's coming back on his left foot, if it's a bit long, there might be someone at the back post rather than whip out of play. So I wasn't too disappointed with the fact that was happening, and it was that kind of build-up in the end. I'm not saying it was exactly that, because I don't think he was involved, but it was that there was almost trying to work on, and it was that ball in the box. I think it was O'Brien who put it in the end from that side to Surridge, and then it came back across the box, and then there was the scramble. So I think there's something to work with. But I totally agree on all your points about that left-back position. I think it's a struggle. What would it even be Forest without a left-back problem?
I know it's been since Nicky Shorey was the last one I think we had. That was consistent.
I tell you when the problem started in 1996 when Stuart Pearce went to Newcastle.
Well, there we go. That was before my time. Before I was even born.
That shirt was present. When,
yes. Yeah, Mark Crossley. Absolutely.
It's probably 97 actually before someone pulls me up. Anyway, good to talk to you, mate. Really appreciate it.
And you, nice to catch up with you.
Plug your channel.
Oh yeah, so I have a YouTube channel myself. It is literally just called Charlie K. I haven't posted in a while, but I've got a video coming out in the next few days. So please do go check that out if you want to, and subscribe if you feel like it, if you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Great conversation, mate. Could talk to you all night about every position, but we got through a bit there, and I appreciate you coming on.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
Cheers, Charlie.
Cheers, Des.
Another good guest there. Like he says, do check out his channel. It's called Charlie K, as he mentioned. Please do subscribe to that. It does Forest content as well, and it's always great to have a different opinion, isn't it? Just a few comments. Nick says Jack Cole back has an ongoing back injury. That is a mystery, Someone's telling me, Pat, Everton's still banging trouble. Calvert-Lewin can't stay fit. I agree with that. He is very injury prone, and they do rely on him massively. Bloody hell, Des looks rough. Then there's no surprise watching Forest. Cheers, mate. Appreciate that comment. Not sure why I'm looking rough, but there you go. Probably all the abuse I got on Twitter over the weekend. Mark says Cook managed Salah. He's quick. I think Salah probably had a bit of an off day that day, didn't he? Russell, as soon as we push up, Cook exposed. If we play low, block, no space behind Cook, then it's fine. But stunts have attacking play. That's exactly what we were saying through that conversation there. This guy is obviously just wanting to abuse us. He's obviously a supporter of another club. That's why he says I'm looking rough. Imagine being in the Premier League and not even having a shirt sponsor. How Tim Pot is your club? Somebody actually asked a question about that earlier. Somebody who will pay attention to from now on, rather than Mark 24. That Tim Pot, this club, that you're tuning into their conversations on YouTube. But there you go. No, you're more than welcome. Keep tuning in every Monday. Jamie said, good luck to the rest of the season from Brentford fans. I got the opportunity to speak to one or two. They were really complimentary about Forest and said that it's great to have them back in the Premier League. You know, it's and it is. You know, it's brilliant to be back. And as ever, I'll bang that drum about keep enjoying it, keep making the most of it. This time last year, we would have snatched your hand off for 2-2 draws with Brentford in the Premier League, so it's definitely something to make the most of. Mark says, you can't expect Yates to ping the ball around. He's a ball winner, draws fouls, wins the ball back, and brilliant off the ball. Watch his positioning and movement is a specific job to do. I totally agree. If you'd have watched the show last week, absolutely. I've been raving about Yatesy for weeks. I think he's actually underrated. I think people do him a discredit in saying he's not one of the best footballers. He's not one of the best footballers. He's not Morgan Gibbs-White, but he's a lot better than people make him out to be. And I've compared it in the last few weeks. Him and Foyer, he makes very similar passes to Foyer. He just doesn't do it in a aesthetically pleasing manner. You know, Foyer looks the part. Yates looks the park footballer. So I'd rather have that any day. RJK Electrical says Loddy is decent. And then backs that up. Our problem isn't defence, it's midfield. We did touch on that and how we sort of the cohesion in there and how we protect the defence at times. Myself and Charlie were talking about that. This is an interesting one. Nick says, remember we have Scarborough arriving in January. Of course we do. Be interesting to see how he goes on. My name's not Dave. We can only get better and more confident. We'll be safe at the end of the season. Let's hope so. I think we're going in the right direction, aren't we? And I know by talking to one or two people who we're lucky enough to talk to around the ground, you know, there's loads of confidence within the club that they will stay up. So again, with the transfer window looming and perhaps a little bit of movement there, it's a chance for them to sort of go again and the World Cup break, of course. Just on the Loddy thing, Simone throws him out, but Loddy does not know why. I'm sure Simone can fall out with just about anybody. RJK Electrical, I can't see us stopping up. You know, it's going to be tough. You know, I don't think there's any point lying about it. It's going to be tough. Just a few more comments. One here from Pets, Plants and Fish Tanks. Tyro would look goodish in Sunday League. Again, somebody who's not fancied by one or two there. I actually think we need to play number 9. I always think we need to play number 9. You know, it's a pity we haven't got the ones that we probably feel we need. But whether it's Surridge or Tyro, I think we need to have that focal point in the team. It just helps push teams back as well, doesn't it? So I think it's important to remember that. Comment here about Ryan Yates. Remember, Roy Keane rates Yates. Well, I think part of Yates' problem of why people say he can't play is because of Roy Keane, and people listen to him saying he's got limited skills. But there you go. So keep liking, guys. Still 80 people watching. Really appreciate the support. Give it a thumbs up if you're watching. That would be fantastic. Subscribe to the channel. Going to get the last guest in now. Got Simon. Are you okay?
You're right, Des. Yeah, all good, mate. All good.
Nice to talk to you. Not met you before, so how are you feeling about Forest at the minute?
We've spoken before, Des, on this channel.
Oh, have we?
Multiple times, yeah.
Oh, sorry. There's that many now.
Yeah, so many now. No, it's fun. I was at the game on Saturday. Yeah, absolutely buzzing, to be honest, at the full-time whistle. I know you said you was a bit disappointed, weren't you, at the end? A bit gutted that we got a draw instead of a win. But I mean, at 90 plus 5 minutes, if somebody had told you that Forest will score a goal, like, we would have snatched your hand off for it.
Yeah, I think for me, Simon, and I do remember you now, actually, sorry. I think for me, I was absolutely fuming with the referee all through the second half. So it's one of them, when you're in a bad mood and nothing for a while is going to put you in a good mood. I almost walked out there thinking, well, we've thrown that away as well. You know, almost when you're angry with something and you take it out on something else. And I just thought we're good enough to win that game of football, even with that penalty decision. And it really upset me that in the second half, I'm not saying the application wasn't there because again, at the end they applied themselves and scored the goal. But something, it got in the heads a little bit, I felt. It got to them, you know, they felt aggrieved. They were probably all a bit wound up. But as a professional footballer, it's all right for me to be angry in the stands and you and everybody else. As a professional footballer and a professional team, they have to come out and sort of deal with that, don't they? It won't be the first, it won't be the last time. And it's not the first, as we know. So I just felt that game was there for the taking. And it was those silly mistakes that cost us. You know, we've spoke about it until the cows come home. The Foyer one, we don't need to go over that. But then it was the second goal that really, really upset me because Brentford targeted them. They target that ball all the time. Aurora picked it up every time. He controlled one on his backside. And then it was as soon as Forest pushed up that ball over the top. And I thought, you know, it was so simple in the end for them, wasn't it? That it was.
Yeah, I mean, how many times have we seen it, like us get done by a ball over the top this season? What I couldn't work out was why Brentford kept going towards Aurier in the first half. You know, he was solid, wasn't he? They weren't getting past him. As soon as they go through the middle, straight in on goal, right?
Well, exactly. I agree with you on that because I turned around to my mate next to me and I went, they seem to be targeting him.
Yeah.
You know, they seem to be like, so whether it was the potential red card thing or things like that, do you know what I mean? They got Keane Potter. It looked like they were trying to get Keane Potter in the game and Aurora had him in his back pocket, to be honest. He got subbed in the end, didn't he? So whether it was that, but it was that killer ball that really sort of I just thought defend that, make a few changes. You know, I'll be completely honest. I always say it whenever I'm going to say something against Steve Cooper. I feel like I'm his biggest fan and I listen to his words and his interviews. But I felt he should have made the subs earlier on Saturday.
Yeah,
I felt that Dennis and Foy should have gone off, and that would have given Forest a massive chance of winning the game. I don't criticise him very often. I don't question him, but I felt Dennis wasn't offering anything because it was just coming back. And I felt with Foyer, you know, we just needed somebody to be a bit more aggressive, a bit more. O'Brien was involved in a goal again when he come off the bench. And don't get me wrong, I see faults in O'Brien. There's a big clamour for him to be in the starting 11 and he's got to play every week. I'm not quite sure about that again. It's that thing that we remember one or two good performances and we think that they should be there. But for me, I just felt that game at that point needed it. And if we'd have, almost like the Sheffield United game last season, second half, the playoff game, we was under the cosh. And then he brought Davis on and the game went back towards us. And I think it was a very similar sort of game in that sense where first half, they didn't look like scoring. They got the tails up with the penalty and then a goal. And then all of a sudden, it don't look like we're getting anything. Of course, I celebrated at the end as if like, well, as you would celebrate a last-minute goal.
Well, I mean, I was celebrating, and I looked up and I saw a purple screen saying checking for offside. I was like, oh my God. I was next to the Brentford fans as well. It was just, it was that moment I was thinking, oh no, like all the decisions going against us that evening, I wouldn't have been surprised if it was offside, given at the end.
One thing I did want to crowbar in, and you've just given me the perfect opportunity.
Yeah.
I sit above the away fans in that towards the corner in the Bridgeford stand. And it's just an observation I made from the game that we wouldn't normally talk about. But you said you sat next to them. Where did Brentford get a vocal support base from?
Yeah, I know.
When did they get a support? Because whenever we played them in the past, they've had about 13 in the corner. But
yeah, I know. That's what I was. I was going to bring this up. Like, I'm still confused how this season, you know, Liverpool come with a much bigger allocation. West Ham come with a much bigger allocation. Didn't hear a single peep from them. But Brentford, like, they were decent turnout yesterday. I don't know if that's just because our fans were not up for it as much as we were for the Liverpool game and the West Ham game. But yeah, I was surprised with Brentford. But yeah, I was happy at the end, obviously, when we scored. And you can see, I looked around to the Brentford fans; they were just like stunned quiet at the end there with that last goal. So yeah, no, that was fun. But yeah, I want to talk about this man. There's what a player! What
Absolutely,
a player.
and we've not. Do you know? After his best performance, we've not spoke about him enough.
Yeah, I
have
know.
we?
That guy ran the show, didn't he? Like every single thing Forrest was doing, he was going through Gibbs White. That goal he scored just came out of nowhere. He had like the whole Brentford defense surrounding him. He still managed to find a way
He's
to
the
get a
only
goal
player.
there.
He's the only player on that in the Forest team that can score that goal. At the moment, is the only player who can beat a man, in a tight position. Of course, when Brennan gets the ball down and he gets one-on-one, you'd fancy him. But he had to beat a man. He almost had to bulldoze his way through a little bit, didn't he?
Yeah.
But it's the thing is with Gibbs White is he makes everything look very simple in the end. And I've got one or two people around me who've been giving him some flack, and I'm like, I know I'm a fan. I know I sort of set my stall out early, but I thought, how has this guy ever been the problem in this team? And again, it boils down to the midfield, getting the ball. I've said it all the way through. The likes of Foyer, the creative players, getting the ball forward. And I don't really have a massive issue with any of our attackers. People are saying Johnson's not what he was. And Lingard, even Lingard, he's not been great. I'm not saying he's been good by any stretch of the imagination. But I feel there's factors in there around the team that affect them. But every single week, Gibbs White is doing something to create. And on Saturday, he just ran the show, didn't he? He was the best player on the pitch.
Even their own goal, it was him that took the shot as well. It was him that took the shot at the end for the Brentford own goal as well. So he was doing everything. You see his work rate as well. He runs around like he's got so much energy. Just the flair is what stands out for me. Probably the best dribbler I've seen for ages. At Forest.
Well, absolutely, and you don't see that play, do you? No. You obviously, when you look at Tottenham, for example, you might have Son and Kulusevski and Salah and people like that, but that's right at the top of the game. In a team like ours, I know it was a cameo appearance, but I remember his debut against Everton and that.
Yeah, I was at that game as well. Yeah. He was so good when he came on.
And I tell you what, this is somebody made the point earlier about we're gonna beat someone 4-0, and again, it seems a long way off and it seems a bit unrealistic. But there's little spells, little 2-3 minute spells in games or 5 minute spells where Lingard, Johnson, and Gibbs White link up, and it looks amazing. It just don't happen enough. Because again, the ball's not getting to them, and we're doing a lot of defending, and we're on the back foot. People are playing it across the penalty area or across the halfway line. So I've seen them in games, and you think when Gibbs White's got that ball, anything's possible for Johnson or Lingard if they get in the right position. Even Tyro, they get in the right positions, they're going to get the ball. How many times did Gibbs White get the ball, run at the defence, and play it out to Dennis, and Dennis fell over? And how frustrating must that be for him? This guy's a quality player. You touched on his work rate. Which game was it? Was it Liverpool? Not Liverpool. Might have been Villa. I can't remember. There's one where he had to really slot in at left wing back, and the work he got for. I think it was Liverpool. It might have been up against Alexander-Arnold late in the game, and he tracked him back every single move. And I thought the fitness of this guy is unbelievable because all he does is runs. It's not worked out for him, has it? He's not got the goals and assists he wants, assists that he should have, he wants to have. But I made a point on Twitter as well at the weekend, amongst many. The game's not played on FIFA either, is it? It doesn't matter if you make 600 successful passes to a teammate if they're 2 yards away from you. It's the one that matters. And I think the one player who's got that in our team at the moment is Morgan Gibbs-White, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, he's got a good through ball as well, isn't he? There's a few times he's played players in. I remember, was it Leicester? It was Leicester, wasn't he? When Tyro hit the post, that was a beautiful through ball. I'm pretty sure he played. Did he play Brennan through on Saturday as well?
Would I?
No. Did
oh yeah, he did. Before the goal, he put one.
Yeah. And Brennan scuffed it, didn't he? Yeah. So I mean, he's so good. Like I remember before the season, me and you both wanted Gibbs-White, didn't we? I remember Dore asked us like, who would you want to sign? Any player? We both said Gibbs-White because, yeah, that guy is class. It just his passion as well. Like you would have thought he was, born and raised in Nottingham. With the passion he shows. So you can't fault him. Yeah.
Do you know what I'll say about Gibbs-White as well, mate? I don't think he's playing the same as he played when we seen him as the good player he was last season. When he played for Sheffield United, he'd almost break into the box without the ball quite often, and he'd pick up some, like the goal he scored at Forest, he almost ghosted in at the near post. And he's not that type of player because we're not playing as much attacking football. Yeah. But I think as an individual, we're getting even more out of him. I'd like us to be as confident as that Sheffield United team were in that second half, and in other games we've seen him earlier in the season and against other teams, but we're not. And he probably didn't get as much as the ball for them, but he was getting into really crucial positions, beating a man, setting a goal up, scoring a goal. He scored 10, 11 goals for them last season. And I think we've not got that same player, but in many ways we've got a better player because we've got somebody who's more in control of his game and more in control of what's happening on the pitch. He's pivotal. He's pivotal in whatever we do. If he's not firing, the other guy, nothing's happening up front because he is the link. I'm wanting it from a bit deeper with what I've said throughout this.
Yeah, I mean, this is what I'm going to ask you. Would you play a 4-2-3-1? So would you play Gibbs-White in the number 10 role with a Wani up front and then Dennis on the left, Brendan on the right, and then 2 in the midfield? Or do you think we need three in that midfield? I'm just thinking, would Gibbs-White be okay and dropping back because he's got that work rate? Would he be all right dropping back from that number 10 role, helping out with the defense? But then I suppose that's probably stunts his attacking play. Just wondering what your thoughts on that is.
No, I'd actually prefer him to be in a number 10 role. I'd like Forest to set up like they did last season, but I understand the reasons they can't. I'm not that naive to think that we can just play the same football as what got us promoted and against.
Well, you want to see the 3 at the back?
Not necessarily in that sense, but the way we set up attacking. So you've got your almost your front 3, but 2 of them are wide. So exactly the same as what you said, but you had Johnson one side. You might have had Zinkenagel as 10. And Davis might have played off the front with Graben up front or something like that. And that's almost what you're saying, but you just labelled it in different numbers. So I see what you're saying. I think the problem lies within that anchor role in midfield again, doesn't it? And having a player capable of doing what's required of the Premier League. And we haven't got that. We haven't got it amongst any of them. It doesn't matter who we argue for playing, whether it's Mangala or O'Brien or Yates or whoever. Last season, we had Coldback, who was good enough for the Championship. And then Garner was good enough for the Championship, and he did that job as well. So we had enough in there, and we probably didn't have to be as defensive at times. So there was not necessarily the cover needed. Now we need a player to sit in to allow those players to go and do that. So I'd like to see Morgan Gibbs-White in a number. I'd like to see a Wani play at number 9. I'd like to see Morgan Gibbs-White play at 10. I'd like to see Johnson play more of a wider role because that's where I think we get more out of him. I think of the game against Fulham towards the end of last season. Fulham put us under a lot of pressure, but we won that game 1-0. I thought Johnson was man of the match. He just ran up and down that right side and he whipped 3 or 4 balls over. We didn't, at that point, I think Davis was injured by then, and Grabham was not playing. I can't remember exactly who played up front. I think Surridge played that game, who doesn't find the positions they do, but he whipped balls in, Johnson. And if you've got him doing that, and you've got a number 9 in there who's good enough to get on the end of these things, and you've got Morgan Gibbs-White running from deep, I feel we become a lot more effective. Not quite sure who the left-sided player is, because I see where Dennis may be, but of course I've mentioned I don't think he's the answer sort of going forward. But that kind of shape amongst the front players, but you would then have to have your holding midfielder, and you would have to have somebody, I don't know, perhaps an O'Brien in there, because Yates isn't really that, for as much as a stopper and a blocker, and he does that side of the game really well, he's not a defensive midfielder, is he? And I think that's creating us a lot of issue, as we've said, both ends of the pitch. So yeah, in short, to your question, I'd love to see Gibbs-White play a more traditional number 10, because it just feels like we've got 3 lines at the moment that work like that. That you've got your defence, you've got your midfield, and you've got your front 3, and they'll do their little thing, and they'll defend, and they'll pick up some pieces in the middle wherever they can. Whereas when the formation you're talking about, it all comes back to interchanging, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And you see the technical players like Lingard maybe if he'd shown a bit more on the left, because that's where he played for West Ham. He's coming off the left. So if you've got them players interchanging a lot more, because there's more confidence, there's more sort of reassurance behind them, I think you'd get a lot more still out of Gibbs-White.
Yeah, I mean, what was Gibbs-White playing on Saturday? Because I thought Dennis was, when I saw the team sheet, I thought Dennis was starting as a striker, but then Dennis looked like, to me, he was more on the left, and then Gibbs-White looked like he was going down the middle. So I don't know if Gibbs-White was playing like a false 9 position, or what was going on with that.
Yeah, it almost looked like a false 9, didn't it? Because they did tend to sort of take up those positions, But again, for me, whilst Gibbs-White, it worked. It worked to a great degree. It's not the long-term answer, is it? A lot of us have mentioned this podcast from Gary Baldy podcast. One of the first things Flex says on it was, if Forest continue to play Morgan Gibbs-White as a number 9, they'll get relegated without a shadow of a doubt, because you need a number 9. And again, to just keep the game sort of turned over. I banged on last week, and I get criticised for it. I don't really care now, but Keenan Davis, for me, in this team, I'm not saying he was a world beater. I know we have to move on from loan.
But Des, where is he now? He's injured again.
Well, exactly, and that's a
You
problem.
can't sign him for 15 million from what?
And that's a problem.
No way.
Yeah, but we couldn't sign him for 15 million on that basis. I totally agree with you. But we signed Tyrone Iwanu for 17. And for me,
I was really surprised he got dropped. To be honest, I thought give this guy a good run of games, he'll deliver. Like almost every time he starts, he scores for us. And Leicester, he was so close to scoring, like just millimeters away from scoring. I think we've got to have some faith with Iwanu.
I think he got dropped, and I might get told I'm talking rubbish. Is when you look at Brentford's team, they've got 2 big centre backs.
Yeah.
Who want to fight, who are up for the fight. Ben Mee and is it Janssen, the guy who used to play for Leeds? I'm not sure who played, but whoever it was. They're up for the fight. They're not quick. So for me, I had a feeling Brennan Johnson would play, because and I think Cooper probably spotted it with the false 9 in Morgan Gibbs-White. Let's get around the feet, because when we play teams, and I'm not saying it's because we play teams, but it's the same thing, isn't it? When players get around Cook and McKenna, when they're playing it long, we can gobble it up all day. Because that's what they do.
Yeah, no, we're good in the air. We're good in the air. It's just that pace.
But I think he probably thought Johnson, Gibbs-White with a bit of guile in that false 9, might be able to slip Johnson in. He did. Johnson scuffed a shot in the first half, and then Gibbs-White scored himself. So it proved to work. And I just think in most games, though, we're going to have to play with a 9. Yeah. And that's why I keep banging on back to Davis. Yes, there was major issues in terms of injury, but somebody who could make the ball stick You imagine the ball sticking and then laying it out to Johnson, and then Gibbs White ghosting in from that sort of number 10 role or that deeper line role, and that's what should happen. Dennis for Watford, he was sort of getting down that line, getting that ball in. I watched a couple of games before he signed for us this season, and but he didn't look like a number 9, and that's what we really need, isn't it?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Dennis is not a number 9. No way. He's a wide player, isn't he? No. I mean, just quickly on the VAR thing what annoyed me with the VAR decision was that, it's the worst clear and obvious. Like, I can understand if the referee gave it as a penalty to begin with, okay, probably not enough to overturn it to not be a penalty. But if it was given as not a penalty, I don't think there was enough evidence there to overturn it to be a penalty, if that makes sense. Like, it's not a clear and obvious error, is it? Henderson got the ball and then just slightly brushed was it Visa's like shin pads, and I don't see how that's enough evidence to overturn the decision.
No, I totally agree, and this is why I'm sort of pulling my ear out again, because I mentioned the rugby league wording right at the start of the show with Paul. Where they go and say to you hear him for a start. It's transparent, so you hear the referee on the pitch say to whoever's in the studio, because it's all mic'd up. He'll say, "Give me a reason not to award this." So football have introduced this, haven't they? It's got to be clear and obvious. So what the referee should be saying, all mic'd up, hopefully, to offer some transparency, because they're not cheats, they keep telling us. The referee should be saying, give me a clear and an obvious reason not to give this. In cricket as well, you see umpires call. So they still put a bit of faith back in the umpire. That drives me a bit bonkers, to be honest, because I think if it's out, it's out. If it's going to hit the wicket. But
I like it. I like the umpire's call because, as you said, yeah.
And I think go on, sorry, mate.
Sorry. Yeah, I like the umpire's call because, I mean, I want to see something similar in football. So if I want to see the on-pitch decision being, having a lot more weight than it currently is, because at the moment the on-field decision seems like it doesn't carry any weight at all, really. Like, as soon as somebody tells the guy in the mic, "Oh, go look at the screen," they just overturn the decision. I don't really understand that. At least with cricket, you can see you can tell, if we're LBW, for example, you can tell, he's going to be out, or I know that it's going to go to umpire's call. Like, you can tell in the ground, sort of like, do you know what I mean? You can tell before they go to the decision whether it's going to be overturned or not. With football, it's just so random at the moment, especially with the Dennis one, especially like. De Bruyne had one identical to Dennis's penalty. Did you see that? Have you seen the De Bruyne one?
Yeah.
It's almost the exact same replay, but De Bruyne gets a penalty and Dennis just gets called a diver. I mean, I saw the match of the day guys all laughing at Dennis for diving. It's just like, but then they'll go call De Bruyne smart for going down or getting his body in the right position. It's ridiculous.
Exactly, and I've not mentioned much about my opinions on the decisions. I thought the Dennis and Morgan Gibbs White one were penalties.
Yeah, Morgan Gibbs White stonewall penalty.
They said he's looking for it. So what? Gary Lineker made a living out of looking for a penalty.
Yeah, he got clipped in the foot. That's contact. He's probably not enough to go down, but neither was Wieser's. Do you know what I mean? Right. Like, it's like brush. It's not enough to make. Rightly
so. People have steered us away a little bit from VAR, but I have got a couple of points I want to make because. It's driving me mad because the big clubs still get the big decisions. They ignore VAR when it's the big clubs. And what I mean by this is I've noticed it all season, but at Liverpool game especially, we had to basically get shot to get a free kick. Any 70-30, we had to win. 70-30 against, we had to win, otherwise we didn't get a free kick. And the problem in this, and I noticed it in the Arsenal game as well in the first half, is they still favour the big teams because if someone, and it's all to do with this offside thing, they don't flag for offside. And I think this favours the big teams massively because if a player runs through and he doesn't score and the ball gets cleared out for a throw-in, the possession is retained by the attacking team because he never got flagged offside. But I noticed with Forest a lot this season, if there's a hint of offside, we get flagged offside, which means when the ball goes out of play or it goes wherever it's going, the possession gets turned over.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
And it's really driving me insane because the more I watch it, the more I see it. When Salah or whoever, or it was Jesus or whoever for Arsenal, they're offside, it creates panic in the defence because the defence is not quite sure, the flag's not gone up, ball gets spooned out for a throw-in or cleared away or whatever, all of a sudden they've got possession back. So that rule is always going to favour the big teams. It's all because they're going to attack more, but attacking more don't mean you get a privilege of getting the ball back when you lose it, just because you're a big club. And I think all the rules today are geared towards these big teams. And I've seen incidents not just against Forest. Last season, Liverpool played Spurs, and Liverpool will always be bigger than Spurs. There was a Salah goal that never even got questioned. And I thought, he's offside. He's offside, and they never even looked at it. And the commentators are ignoring it and things like that. And I mentioned earlier, I don't want to make this a conspiracy against Forest because when they see things like the penalty and saying it's not a penalty and laughing and whatever, I don't think they're doing it on purpose. But it's almost subconsciously now in football that everything's got to go for the big clubs. And it's driving me mad, that rule. The offside thing is driving me insane.
Yeah, I know.
It just goes on and on and on until... It's like with Yates at the weekend. It was outside the box, so it's a free kick. It's a free kick then because you've stopped the play. But it's not a free kick because we played on. But that wasn't what they were checking VAR for. Well, that's just ridiculous, isn't it?
Because do you think with the Yates one, if it was in the box, they would have given a penalty? Because on the screen at the ground, it said outside the area. So it seemed like they acknowledged it was a foul, but they said it was outside the area.
Well, that's what it appeared to be, doesn't it? But I don't think they would have given it as a penalty because now all of a sudden everybody's saying it's not a penalty. But you're exactly right. Outside the box, they said it's outside the box, so we can't give it. What they did, they made the decision in the favour of the big team, or not the big team. They made the decision.
I think we're a much bigger team than Brentford.
No, I didn't mean that.
No, it's joking.
They made a decision what was easy for them.
Yeah.
So basically, the ball, they give the free kick, but the rule says you play on. So, we're acknowledging it was a foul, but everyone after that said it's not a foul. I think it was a penalty. I used to play midfield and I used to rest my hand on someone's back to win a header, and I get given a free kick against me all the time. I didn't push anyone; I just put my hand there. So if that's not a penalty, I don't know what is because he's moved his arm in like that.
I think it was outside the area though.
I just think the rules are set now, and this is my massive bugbear with VAR and the way the rules are. They're set to help the big clubs, and that's not necessarily the case against Brentford. I know I've kind of gone off on a bit of a tangent, but the way the ruling is, it just helps the teams that are better. It doesn't give you a fighting chance. There's no leveler within the rules to make it a fair game, and that's my big thing about it.
It's frustrating as well because in the ground we're all shouting for offside, but you see the play just going on, and it's because the linesman didn't flag because of VAR because they're told not to flag, and then because of that, as you said, the ball goes back into play and they just carry on, which is just seems weird. Like,
no,
but why is the linesman not putting his flag on after the incident? Because that's what they're normally meant to do, isn't it? They're meant to.
Well, exactly, and I tell you what, the last point I'm going to make on this, because we're going to have to sign off at some point. I could be here all night.
Yeah, I know.
But the thing about VAR, I always thought with football, because nobody really wanted the pauses in the games and the emotion to go out of it, they can look at it that quick now. Somebody could be sat in the studio looking at a screen like we are and could just stop the play. The referee could have given that penalty and said no. Oh, he could have given it or not give it, the one that went against us. And then within about 15 seconds, someone could have gone, that's a penalty. And then that's the end of the decision. You know, if they feel they had to overrule in that sense, be brave enough to make a big decision. If that VAR, Lee Mason or whoever it was, thought that was a penalty, because then you're finding clear and obvious errors. That was your point, wasn't it?
Yeah,
If the VAR is screaming down his ear, I've just seen something. No replays involved. I've seen it. I've seen or a very quick replay if it's gone out for a goal kick or something like that. If he says I've seen a penalty, that's a penalty. Then there's no sort of issue, because if a referee's missed a clear foul, but the VAR's seen it in the studio, gone, that's a penalty. That's clear and obvious. That is what clear and obvious is, isn't it? And they've completely missed what clear and obvious means. You know, it's just, again, Fletcher made a great point. He said, in America, in the NFL, at the end of every season, they change the rules to suit the fans, because the fans are the paying customers. But in football, we've got to ignore all the fans and the emotion and what fans want and think, because they're better than us. You know, we're just peasants who come along and pay ridiculous amounts of money to watch it. And again, I don't think it should go down that route as sword, but there is ways of tweaking it so we could get a better outcome.
Yeah, fully agree with you.
But no, great to talk to you, mate. Get me on VAR, and I could be here all night. So, really appreciate you coming on, and apologies for forgetting. I
No worries.
It's a red shirt. I've not seen you in a red shirt before. I know it's difficult doing this, but no, I appreciate you coming on. Some great points, mate. We got stuck into the referees there, didn't we? So,
looking forward to the Tottenham game on Wednesday. That should be interesting. Would you play a strong team, or would you go for a slightly weaker team?
I think I would do what Steve Cooper does most of the time, where he plays. Like last year against Liverpool, there were one or two knocks. McKenna didn't play, so he played Figueiredo, and he played a 4-4-2, I think, or some variation of 4 at the back. And I think if there's any knocks, anybody really struggling and or like sort of a percentage fit or unfit, I would take them out. You know, I'd perhaps play Worrell. You know, I'd like to see Worrell come back in. I'm actually surprised we didn't see a couple of bookings on Saturday with the defenders being on 4. I thought this would have been the perfect one to.
I think a lot of Forest fans are desperate for Cook to get another yellow, to be honest.
but I'm surprised we didn't see him, because again, it might be a conspiracy theory. Somebody put it to me that, did Tony get booked on purpose, feeling that it could be the game to miss? You know, it could be a winnable game.
I think we would have played better with Tony, to be honest.
I don't think that's the case, but someone put it to me. But when you think about it, we've got
because he would have. Sorry, he would have rather missed. He would have rather got booked at Forest and then missed the Carabao Cup game.
That was exactly my point, mate. But somebody said to me, if it was up to Thomas Frank, which way would you rather it be? But regardless of all that, we've got 3 centre backs on 4 bookings. So
when does it reset?
It's not till after. Well, it'll be a bit later this year still, won't it? Because of the thing. But we got 3 on 4, and I thought the League Cup might have been the ideal one for Brentford late on in the game. You know, perhaps saying the wrong thing. Might have been the one to get booked in, because now we've got the 3 centre backs who we probably consider our first 3, all on 4, I believe. So it'd be interesting to know, because in the League Cup it does sort of.
No, I see what you mean now. They should have just took their shirt off or something. Or throw the ball away. I remember Mourinho did that before, didn't they? I can't remember. So it was something like that where they did some stupid stuff and then got.
Well, I read something. I can't remember whose book it was reading, but apparently at Christmas it happened. To miss Boxing Day, it happens all the time. We don't realise this, fans.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
It happens all the time. Yeah. So that's it. So getting back to your point, mate. Before we wrap up, I would make 3-4 changes. You know, perhaps give Hennessy a run out. We know Henderson's number 1.
Yeah, definitely.
No, there's no other reason than giving him a run out. I don't think Henderson needs to be rested or anything like that. You know, one or two sort of maybe one or two positional things. If there's a left back or a positional play three at the back, maybe, you know, just to see. But I would give it a go. I know, and like I say, I know Cooper didn't make too many changes, but that was in a winning team, wasn't it? That was when it was important about. It was important to keep the momentum going. But I think this could create momentum. And again, after Christmas, if you're in the League Cup and you start picking up, you start winning a couple of games, the season starts sort of snowballing as it did last season with the FA Cup.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, thinking back to that Liverpool game, in hindsight, I think I'm glad that we sort of lost that game. Because if we'd have won that, we would have gone to play Man City at Wembley, got an absolute hammering, and then probably Wembley wouldn't have been the same with it. Like if we'd have gone to it all that time, got hammered, and then the playoff final wouldn't have been as special as it was, I think.
Well, I'm glad as well, because I've always said I'd never have a tattoo, and Dore thought I was going to have a tattoo. I said if we won the FA Cup, not if we got promoted, and he wanted me to say if we if we got promoted, but I thought that might happen. I knew we wouldn't win the FA Cup. But anyway.
We got to see Bade on Wednesday. We've got to see Bade on Wednesday.
Hopefully. I don't know. I say hopefully. If he
doesn't play.
I said it earlier, didn't I? If he plays, we get a chance to look at him and make a mind up, you know, to some degree. If you don't, you know, we'll just have to go with whatever Cooper says. But I appreciate you coming on, mate, waiting so long as well, waiting so patiently. We've actually been on for nearly 2 hours now, so we better start thinking about going to bed. But no, great conversation, some great points, and I won't forget you next time.
No worries, mate. Yeah, we got to catch up in real life at some point.
No, definitely do. Of course, I'll be if you're at the games. We're always around the club shop before the game, so
yeah, cool.
I want to come up and say hello, and of course, keep coming back on. I appreciate your comments.
No worries, mate. Good night. See you.
Cheers. Thanks. Again, great chat with Simon. Loads we sort of got through there, particularly the VAR stuff. I would have absolutely been here till midnight if given chance. I just hate the thing. I hate the fact that people can't make a big decision. You know, just a point on that, Charlie. Alternative to VAR, 2 refs on the pitch, analog way to deal with increased speed of the game. I did think one of the problems with Mariner at the weekend was he stood in the centre circle and he didn't move very far. So it just backing up that point about the speed of the game and how refereeing's changing, I guess. My name's not Dave. Good point on American football. Tannoy system telling the crowd what's happened could make VAR useful again. Absolutely. Just reading the last few comments. Comment here from Chapo. If you're happy and you know it, if you paid the ref. We better not get talking about everything. I saw a bit of an interview, a translated interview from the owner, questioning one or two decisions in Greece, which I thought was interesting. But we'll leave that one there. Really appreciate everybody coming on and sticking with it, guys. It's been a long episode. Lots to get through there. 2 hours worth, but probably the longest one we've done. But it has come after that game at the weekend, which gave us so much to talk about. So many talking points. It's great to talk to the guys. As you've seen, we didn't agree on everything, but that's absolutely fine. You know, we're all football fans. We've all got our opinion. If you want to get involved next week, please do. It'll be the last one before the winter break, the break for the World Cup. I'm looking forward to the rest. I've got a couple of months of getting my Monday nights back. Probably actually watching some football again, which is my best thing. Even more so than talking about it, even though I seem to do that a lot these days. But really appreciate everyone tuning in, all the support. It's been great to do this so far. Even if it does create a bit of controversy and a bit of flack coming my way and Mr. Dore's way and the rest of us, that's what we put ourselves on the line for. That's what we want to do, is just deliver some football content. So appreciate all the views. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up before you sign out. That'd be absolutely amazing. If you can subscribe to DoreOnTour, get him up to 9K. And if you could subscribe to my channel, Do Daily. It's spelled D-O Daily, all one word. That would be amazing too. Just trying to get mine up to 1,000 so I can do 1 or 2 more things. Don't talk about football on that. So if you think I talk absolute rubbish about this, give me a chance on there. But no, it'd be amazing if you can get behind that too. Just show a bit of support. Once again, thank you to everyone involved. There was a comment in there I wanted to finish on, and I forgot to sort of pull it out. But basically, it said VAR is bollocks, and we all know it is, isn't we? The title of the show confirms it all. Until next week, we got a point. You know, we're edging closer. We're edging closer to where we need to be. We've got to be positive. And for all my frustrations, you know, after the game, it was frustrations about how it just seemed to be going against us. Not the fact I'm writing us off, because I wouldn't do that. I'm loving the Premier League. I'm loving every minute of it. I'm loving talking about it and loving interacting with you guys. So until next week, Dore will be back. I think he's got a show lined up for tomorrow ahead of the Spurs game. There'll be the vlog, and then there'll be more for the Palace game at the weekend before I'm back next week. Make sure you tune in. Have a good week. Come on, you Reds. Next round of the Cup and 3 points, and we'll all be smiling again next Monday. Up the bloody Forest, as the man himself would say.